Today's presentation is brought to you by the Pupil Services Department of the Abington School District in Abington, Pennsylvania. Social media and its effects on mental health, exploring the complex relationship. This video will explore research which has shown both positive and negative effects of social media on kids. It will also provide suggestions for our community based on these research findings. Social media use is on the rise. Smartphones came out in 2007, but the reach really increased around 2012-2013. This increase made it easier and faster for teens to access social media. Whereas phones used to be simply for communicating with one another, now everyone had the internet in their hands, and with that came 24/7 access to social media. Social media was once only found on computers, which typically were shared by family members and located in a shared space in the home. Now it goes wherever you go. By 2015, 1 out of 4 teens said that they were online almost constantly, according to a report by Pew Research. And by 2016, 79% of teens owned a smartphone. Understanding social media's impact on mental health is complicated and nuanced. Data suggests that even when teens are doing other activities, they are still constantly thinking about their social media. Teen girls' social lives move to social media platforms, while teen boys' social lives move to the virtual world of video games. The constant access meant that people, especially teens, were no longer fully focused and present with people and activities that were right in front of them. Social media has changed the childhood and adolescent experience. Everything from sleep patterns to role models has been shifted. There is a lot of data that has been collected on the use of social media. According to Pew Research Center, 81% of teens in the U.S. use social media. YouTube and TikTok are the most popular platforms for teens to use on a daily basis. The introduction of smartphones fundamentally changed the childhood experience, from one revolving around play to one revolving around one's phone. Their social lives switched from in-person to social media platforms. Younger teens aged 13 to 15 years old tend to gravitate towards platforms like TikTok and Snapchat, while older teens aged 16 to 18 years old are more likely to use Instagram and Twitter. Research shows that girls often prefer visually oriented platforms like Instagram, while boys are more drawn to YouTube and Twitter. Hispanic teens have higher engagement rates on platforms like TikTok and Snapchat, while African American teens lean towards Instagram and Twitter. Studies have shown some positive effects of social media. Despite the negative impacts, research has shown that social media can provide vital support for individuals with mental health issues. A study in cyberpsychology, behavior, and social networking indicated that online support groups can help improve mental health outcomes by fostering community and reducing isolation. Practicing conversations online can help students who have anxiety or struggle in social situations. Social media can help students connect with social support networks. This can be especially helpful to marginalized students, such as students in the LGBTQ+ community. Social media can provide a space for teens to discover and learn new things. It also creates a space for self-expression, which is very important at this time in a teen's life. There are some documented negative effects of social media as well. In the summer of 2010, the front-facing camera on smartphones was introduced to users. Following that, Instagram was created, and then came filters. This chain of events led to widespread comparison, mainly of teenage girls. However, instead of natural comparison that happens in person, they were comparing themselves to altered versions of their peers, which made them aspire to live up to unrealistic standards of beauty and also lifestyles. With snapshot posts of one's life, Others often viewed their peers as having perfect lives. Many girls began comparing themselves to the point where their satisfaction with themselves plummeted. One other issue to add to the matter is girls endure higher levels of socially prescribed perfectionism. Socially prescribed perfectionists believe that other people have very high expectations of them and that they must live up to these perfect standards. It often leads to anxiety, and this type of perfectionism started rising at the same time as the introduction of this new technology. A study published in Journal of American Medical Association found that adolescents who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media are at a higher risk for mental health problems, including anxiety and depression. According to Jonathan Haidt, author of The Anxious Generation, Gen Z was the first generation of Americans who went through puberty with smartphones and the internet, leading them to become more anxious, depressed, self-harming, and suicidal. The increase in anxiety, depression, and self-harm impacted girls more than boys, affecting preteen girls the most of all. People are more likely to become depressed when they either become or feel more socially disconnected. In that same vein, depression makes people less interested and able to make social connections, leading to a vicious cycle of isolation. This too is connected to having a childhood revolving around phone use rather than in personal play. An article by the Cleveland Clinic describes FOMO, or fear of missing out, as the feeling or perception that other people are having fun, experiencing new things, or living a better life than you. This can happen by seeing your friends do an activity without you, but it can also happen with parasocial relationships as well, meaning teens can suffer from FOMO by viewing other people on social media that they don't know in real life doing cool and interesting things. This also plays into being on social media initially. If every one of your peers is active online, you want to be there too. You don't want to miss out on what's going on. A study in the Journal of Computers in Human Behavior revealed that FOMO is significantly associated with negative emotional outcomes, such as increased anxiety and lower life satisfaction. Although there is no formal diagnosis for information overload, psychologists are seeing an increase in their patients suffering from new related stress and what's now being called doom scrolling. A study done by Matthew Price of the University of Vermont found an association between the amount of exposure a person had to news on social media linked with higher levels of depression and PTSD symptoms. There are a few ways to combat the overstimulation, such as to become a proactive participant with causes you care about, and setting limits for time spent on your phone and consuming information. Research published in the Journal of Behavioral Addictions found that individuals exhibiting signs of social media addiction reported higher levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. Addiction is often observed as teens checking their apps to see who liked their posts. If they don't have any likes, they often feel disappointed and they will engage with others virtually until that engagement is reciprocated, which leads to them to feel good again. Because their emotions are involved in the social media use, the experiences can be viewed as an addiction. The creators of social media apps use similar psychological tools to get people hooked as they do for slot machines. Their goal is to keep people engaged on the apps, not to protect them from overusing them. A study in sleep health found that heavy social media use is correlated with poor sleep quality and increased risk of insomnia among young adults. An adolescent brain cognitive development study showed that when your sleep is shortened or disturbed, you are more likely to show signs of depression and develop behavioral problems. These effects impacted girls more than boys. Heavy screen use was associated with shorter sleep duration, longer sleep latency, and more mid-sleep awakenings. These sleep issues were greatest for people who use their phones in bed. For teens who spend most of their time on their phones, there is also a decrease in their productivity. Due to teens' bodies and social lives changing so rapidly, they are more vulnerable to insecurity than other groups. Girls are more sensitive to visual comparisons. They are more likely to develop socially prescribed perfectionism, in which a person tries to live up to impossibly high standards held by others or by society. The introduction of filters makes many girls believe that they are less attractive than their peers they are seeing on their phones. It increases their desire to look a certain way and make them more anxious about their appearance. Girls' social media algorithms are intensifying their desire to be beautiful and thin by constantly showing them images of very thin women if the girls show any interest in weight loss, beauty, or even healthy eating. Research suggests that setting limits and boundaries around social media, combined with discussion and coaching from adults, is the best way to promote positive outcomes for youth. Encouraging students to focus more of their time on activities that they enjoy, like outdoor activities, sports, or artistic endeavors, helps them spend less time on social media. According to Jonathan Haidt, 4 foundational reforms that could be mitigation strategies include no smartphones before high school, no social media before age 16, phone-free schools, and more unsupervised play and childhood independence. The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, he discusses how a number of states in the U.S. have enacted a code called the Age-Appropriate Design Code to make sure the tech companies are providing safe online environments for children. For example, the code includes making the default settings on phones to have posts private, have the location off, explain their privacy policies, and the use of parental controls. Another way tech companies are working on these issues is by having sites create better methods of verifying people's age, instead of just clicking a button that says, "I am 18, with no real way of verifying. So I know many parents are asking, what can I do? For children aged 6 to 13, here are several suggestions based on the research. Limit screen time to no more than 2 hours a day. Strongly encourage your kids to hang out with their friends without phones or do after-school activities. Stop phone use 30 minutes before bedtime. Playing video games in moderation with a friend in person is better than playing alone in their room. Provide shared meals that are phone-free. Have a family movie night. Check in to see if social media use is disrupting your child's day. Discuss the risks of posting on the internet and sharing personal information online with your child. Talk to your kids about what they're seeing on social media. Set parental controls on your children's devices. For high school age students, here are a couple more. Let teenagers hang out together in public spaces, parks, malls, and restaurants. This way, they have spaces to go outside of their online worlds. Give your teenager roles in the home, helping with cooking and cleaning and running errands. Encourage and support them to get a part-time job or babysit. This can help empower your teen. Parents can also model behaviors for their children by limiting time on their phones as well. District Administration completed a book study last summer by reading The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, which is referenced a number of times in this presentation. Our library staff delivers lessons on cyber safety to all students each year. For example, topics for our 5th and 6th grade students include bystanders versus upstanders, digital footprints, talking to strangers online, managing screen time, and digital miscommunication. Our middle school counseling team for the 24-25 school year redesigned the Parent Seminar program to include topics that are pertinent to students in all grades. For example, they had a presentation on digital literacy for middle school students and families virtually on November 6th. Since the start of the school year, Abington School District implemented a new phone use policy in school. We received information from staff and students stating that students are more engaged in learning and less engaged in cell phone activity. In conclusion, social media has become a major phenomenon among our kids. There are some positive and negative outcomes that continue to be investigated. While social media can have a detrimental effect on mental health, it can also serve as a platform for support and connection. The key lies in understanding its impact and finding a balance in usage. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any specific concerns with your child, please know that our Pupil Services staff is here to help. We have psychologists, counselors, social workers, and nurses available to support you and your family. Follow the link on this slide to find out the contacts for your child.